Hello and welcome to the demonstration of the EX4300 series lab from juniperlab.net. My name is Anthony and today I'll be taking you through the access of console ports and also to the jump host. At this point in time you will have received an email from juniperlab.net similar to the one that I'm showing you now that will contain details in the subject heading outlining the course that you're about to deliver, the start date of the event, the lab details, which will show you information as far as the number of devices allocated to your class. It could be a quarter, a half, 3/4, or a full lab. And then we will also make sure that we have this right as far as the current time zone and city where your event's taking place. And if we've received any details specific to the class start and finish times, we will also note that inside the subject. Further down in the body of the email, if you're the instructor and we haven't received the details, we will prompt for those, which will enable us to provide better support to our lab infrastructure. Further details, reading through, you'll come across the requirements to authenticate to the lab environment and the importance of being able to authenticate. We have one user account with the same password and we are able to manage multiple students from different locations inside the classroom and remote to access the same lab with the same credentials. Each time that account is used to log in, a list of IP addresses are created, so therefore any further access to the console port or to the jump host will be permitted, providing the authentication was successful. At this point in time we have two IP addresses for the authentication, and just for demonstration purposes I will use the one that I've highlighted here and go and change the screen to my browser, where I will see the IP address, and now I've got a prompt in the window for the web authentication process to begin. At this point in time, I'll type in the username of EX-student and the associated password. Now, if the password was to be wrong, this is an example of the message that would be displayed. If the password is correct, and then I click on login, I can see here an updated WebAuth login success message appear. And at this particular point, I'm now able to access the additional IP addresses and ports that have been supplied in the lab access document. In addition to the details, which we'll look at further down in the body of the email, we've also attached a number of different documents that will provide additional input outside what has already been provided by Juniper and with inside the lab documentation here. So looking at the different accounts, we can also see we have an EX-student which we've currently just logged in, and it will provide me access to 8 kits, which will be a total of 16 switch devices for a full lab hire. Outside of that, we might have a half lab hire, and therefore we have different accounts to obviously restrict access to the first 4 devices as opposed to EX-2-student, which will provide access to the last 4 kits, which obviously will support 4 students. Now, to get access to the terminal server console, we've provided details where we can clearly see that Telnet is the protocol and the only protocol that will work to the IP addresses and the ports provided. We've given you a sample of what our numbering system and structure will be, so that makes it easy for you to communicate with your students what device they're going to be accessing. As you can see here, we've got student 1 and we've got a couple of different ports all off the same IP address. This is for the terminal server console. We will use Telnet to get to the terminal server. Once the traffic hits the terminal server, our serial console cables will directly connect to the console port on the EX4300 series switch. This means we can access the device without any IP address configuration being correctly configured, and we can begin then building the configuration from there. At this particular point, I will show you using my secure CRT, where I have already these IP addresses and ports, and using the protocol Telnet can begin to open up these connections. So if I highlight and press enter, I will receive a new window where it will indicate providing my authentication hasn't timed out, and in essence it should last more than an hour after the last keystroke or activity. So if I click on the first tab and I press enter, I receive a prompt to type in the username and password, which is lab and lab123. At this point in time, I have direct console access to the device, enabling me to continue my configuration. And as you can see, using the secure CRT client, I can proceed to log in to the two devices if I'm student 1. If I was student 2, once again, I would receive those login prompts. And in this instance here, I see that student 2, there's already a session in process. It will support, the terminal server will support multiple connections by different people. So do be careful that students don't accidentally type in the wrong port number and therefore start configuring a device that has not been allocated to them. The other advantage of this that you can see when I'm typing and the other person is typing, instructors can use that for the student access as well. At this point, that concludes access to the terminal server console with direct telnet access to the console, and we can begin to work on our lab activities assigned in the lab guide. Further down the page, you will find the server and jump host access. There is an instruction available inside, attached to the email, but also at the same time, we've just included a couple of the handy items that you will need to get access to the lab quickly, and you should be able to figure the rest out from there. At this point in time, we have 8 jump hosts, and therefore we have a specific URL that if we go back to our browser and type in that URL, and it normally takes between 2 and 5 seconds for this page to appear. At this point, we type in the user lab and the password of lab123. And at this point, we can see access to the jump host, which will provide us access to a virtual desktop. It will provide access also to the existing EX4300 devices, which we were accessing on the console, but using SSH, providing the IP addresses are correctly configured, and also other devices that may be applicable to this lab, such as the Junos Space appliance. So if I commence by clicking on the student desktop, and you can see here the icons are arranged and the appropriate applications and utilities are available here for commencement of the lab environment. To go back, you simply hold down Control, Alt and Shift, and it will display the menu where I can then simply go back to home, and at this point in time I can then proceed to move to another type of connection inside that lab environment. That concludes the demonstration of how to access our EX4300 series lab. If you have any questions or require assistance in booking a lab, if we click on Emergency Help, we've got out of hours contact support. On the left hand side, we've got Contact Us, which will enable us to capture all the details we need in order to make a lab booking. I hope you found this information useful, and we hope to hear from you soon.